But I remember, I think like the first thing Kyle told me was that when somebody gives you a compliment, believe them because people rarely, are rarely honest in that way. And he, I think Kyle like really acknowledged that I was a writer, like that was maybe something I could do and or was maybe good at. And so when he told me that, I really took that to heart. But also, Kyle was a very good manager in that there was always an expectation that I was doing something beyond the work, the 9 to 5. There's always
Totally.
encouragement that I should be writing after hours. I should be pursuing other things. I should be like thinking bigger, which was very helpful because at the time I thought that the 9 to 5 was as big as it could get because I had been
Sure.
working in retail before and now I had
Totally.
401k and healthcare and like, but Kyle was always like, no, there's more. Like,
Hip replacement, episode number 43. Kyle, we're in the public eye today.
We are. Did it go out? It already went out? I haven't seen it
We're
yet.
advertisers. We've crossed the threshold. The Hip Replacement podcast is now both a newsletter on Substack at hipreplacement.substack.com. And also, we placed a classified ad in our friend Delia Kai's D's Links newsletter today to promote last week's live episode with Willa Bennett. So anyway, I say that to say, if you're not subscribing to the newsletter, but you are hearing this, please subscribe to the newsletter. And if you found this via the newsletter, please review all of the past episodes of Hip Replacement.
And welcome. Those classified ads work, I guess.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, listen, Kyle, moving, with episode 42, we found the meaning of life in our conversation with Willa Bennett. Today's conversation with Lukas, what are we going to talk about?
Well, we're going to talk about a lot of things, but first off, let me give you Lukas and I's, or let me introduce Lukas and give our background, because I think this episode's been a long time coming in a lot of ways. So Lukas Ferreira, he's the writer of the Substack Upstairs, Downstairs, sort of like dissects things that are in and out through a very sort of clever, parts of the house, if you will. He's also a copywriter, writer in general, working in social in New York City. He and I met because when I was a copywriter or leading a team of copywriters at an agency, largely doing work for YouTube and Google and a lot of those clients, writing for them. Lukas was my first hire. And Lukas, that job for Lukas, I think, was his first adult job. And now he's been a copywriter for a few years. And here we are. Yeah.
It was actually my first big boy interview for anything.
Yeah.
And when I got the job, I was thrilled. And now I'm here.
So it had been like the ice cream shop and the dry cleaner and that sort of stuff beforehand, and then you met Kyle, and suddenly business clicked into place.
But J. Crew instead.
J. Crew, yeah. So
J. Crew at the Grove, which we both lived on opposite sides of the Grove. So we have lots of connections that we didn't know about until much later. But very excited to have Lukas, who is my, my surrogate son, my work son. So here we are.
No, I've known you for 5 years at this point.
Yeah, 5-year-old.
So just the quick digression. We'll talk. We'll get into the whole generations X, Y, and Z thing in a minute. But I have a question for you, Lukas. So I over the course of my career have hired and had as direct reports many young people, some of whom at various points have come up to me and said, Ben, that thing you said to me really changed the way I looked at my life or my circumstances or the thing or the business or whatever. And very often they will tell me something and I will be like, I have no recollection of saying that whatsoever. Like none. I'm really glad it made a huge difference for you. There are many things that people said to me that have made a difference, but I wonder, is there anything that Kyle's ever said to you that was just like light bulb that went off that you use as a kind of a mantra or a moment of catharsis or definition?
I mean, honestly, there are too many to count. Like, I feel like every one-on-one that we had together, I took something away from it. I know I'm not being annoying right now, but it is
Shout
true.
out to one-on-ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I remember that. But I remember, I think like the first thing Kyle told me was that when somebody gives you a compliment, believe them because people rarely, are rarely honest that way. And he, I think Kyle like really acknowledged that I was a writer, like that was maybe something I could do and or was maybe good at. And so when he told me that, I really took that to heart. But also, Kyle was a very good manager in that there was always an expectation that I was doing something beyond the work, the 9 to 5. There's always
Totally.
encouragement that I should be writing after hours. I should be pursuing other things. I should be like thinking bigger, which was very helpful because at the time I thought that the 9 to 5 was as big as it could get because I had been
Sure.
Hmm.
working retail before and now I had a
Totally.
401k and healthcare and like, but Kyle was always like, no, there's more. Like,
Well, so glad yes, thank you, and glad that has like helped to clarify about the like doing something else. I think that is really good advice for literally anybody working. Is just like, unless you're working your dream job, which I don't even think exists anymore, you should
Right.
always do something on the side. But the other thing too is that like, look, I know we have some copywriters listening, and I love you and I love that you have that job. But my thing to my writers on the copywriting team, I was like, none of them were trained copywriters because I'm like, copywriter is a real job, yes, but also it's not. Like, you should be doing other writing and you should be aiming to get to those other writing worlds. And like, copywriting is a really good day job for a writer. And it's like, that's what I was always trying to instill, among other things, that like, this shouldn't be your like dream job. You should want to get out of it. Like, this is a great stepping stone. Like, what I tell it the bosses, probably I told it to everybody. It was like, even you, the boss, you should be doing another thing too. Like, we all don't want to be writing and like posting for XYZ company anyway, but that's where that comes from.
Sure. Well, okay, so I want to. Well, first of all, we've had enough conversations, and hopefully, people have listened to know that I feel very similarly, mainly around the idea that if you're not staying curious constantly, and you're not
Yes.
kind of exploring avenues and associations, you're letting yourself down, and will ultimately let your sort of trajectory in your community down.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that struck me, Lucas, about what you said was Kyle's advice that when someone gives you a compliment, assume they mean it. I wonder, and not to say that that isn't totally true, but it strikes me that like empty compliments or sort of um, immaterial affirmations are a thing that young people do
Mm-hmm.
because they feel compelled to do it, not because they actually mean it. And
mm,
I often feel about myself, like I will tell somebody, "Oh, I like your outfit," or "I think this is a cool thing you did," or "I saw you do something," because I noticed it, not because I am searching
Right.
for a way to relate to them. Am I wrong about that? Is it not a sort of a trait of millennial and younger people to want to give positive affirmation for the sake of giving positive affirmation?
maybe, but I actually think that Gen Z or the younger generations,
Sure.
Oh
maybe
yeah.
um, under millennials, are too cynical for that.
I can agree with
That
that.
we are
Okay.
quite, we're quite dry and don't think that positivity is not our crutch. So maybe
Not your love language.
it's not,
Right.
yeah, not the love, I think we're a lot more cynical than that. So I think that when Kyle
Interesting.
did tell me that, I felt, and also I think that you can generally believe whether people mean it or not.
Totally.
Yeah, I
True
don't
to true.
I don't you can definitely discern it. Sorry, Kyle, go ahead.
Well, I was also going to say that like there are two other factors in this, and I think that's a really good point, Ben, because I do think there is a niceness in general with young people, independent of generation. I do think that's like something that happens. But I also do think like a compliment means something really different when it's coming from somebody older or someone who you really
Yeah.
respect. And I think that
That's true.
usually has a weight to it that goes beyond. And usually if someone's like, "Oh, you smell really good," I'm like, "Yes," but I like, that's me today. Versus like, you I don't know, you have a really good way with children, like that's a really different something.
Sure.
Number one, and like that, does that mean like I'm gonna become a father? No, it just means like I'm gonna like see my nieces and nephews more. But the other thing that I think like, and this is another Lucas and I connection, which I think is what made him jump out and say the quote unquote slush pile is that he was also an actor who was a writer too. And that's how I got my start, was through acting. And so I saw a lot of myself in Lukas. And that was, I'm sure that I gave you that sort of or that sort of piece of advice, coupled with like that was something for a long time that I would get that compliment of like, you're a really good writer. And I'd be like, thank you, but I'm an actor, I'm an XYZ, I'm not writing. And here we are, 15, almost 20 years later, of like, that is my career. But like, that was something that like for years I was like, thanks, but like, I'm not a writer. And so then like it eventually switched. Like that's where that comes from, because like I people would tell you that I think you didn't take it in a way or something, because I think that's where it sort of came from.
Totally. To that point, like I had been told that I was a good writer in middle school and high school and college, but I never listened to it because that wasn't what I wanted to hear.
Right.
What I wanted to hear at the time was I'm a good actor, because that's what that's the path I was on. And I was just so the compliment, I think, found me at the right time. You telling me that was like,
Okay. So that's actually, this is the totally the opposite of the kind of perfunctory, affirmation that I'm talking about, that I see as like almost like a generational tick. That's a deeply considered compliment, because it's not only trying to offer you, encouragement, but it's also trying to like change your direction entirely.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
have you had anything happen like that? Because I'm also curious. Like, I don't think those compliments go away regardless of age. Like, has anybody said something to you like now where you're like, let me listen to that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm struggling to think of one very recently, but I can imagine lots of those pieces of advice over the course of my career.
I feel like
some of
in
which,
a way,
and we've
tied to this work and literally what we're doing now, I feel like because even when I was like in New York for the past 2 weeks, like it would come up a lot of how good you are at this. And like, granted, you've done this for a while, but like the universe is telling you something, Ben.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what this is, right? Like,
I don't know.
do you mean I'm good at talking to people? Or, it's.
I guess, yeah.
You're really good at moderating.
People,
I was there at episode 42.
Yeah.
The live session. Yeah, you're good at holding the moment.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I believe you mean that compliment, Lukas. Thank you. Well, yeah, it's interesting. I guess I think of those bits of advice less as compliments and more as bits of advice, but I do think they're
Fair.
They land in different ways. Well, one thing though, to pivot a little bit into more the topics at hand, the idea of being active outside of your work life and constantly doing more to explore and to pursue, it dovetails a little bit, Kyle, with this X post that you sent through for us to look at, which was about how the girlies are experiencing social, or maybe it's not just the girlies, maybe it's everybody, but this is
social girlies for sure.
Those social girlies, but this is Watch Holly saying, so you're saying I have to post on Instagram photos, but also Reels, Threads, Stories, and community chats, TikTok, but also Lemonade, Twitter and Blue Sky, Facebook page and story, Twitch and story, the YouTube long form, short form, and shorts, Discord and friends Discords, Patreons, daily? Clearly doing too much.
Me learning about 4 platforms in that tweet alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know I haven't. I was as Lemonade that had a 2-week run in 2023, but what the hell? But
every now and then I'll get ads on TikTok. I'm like, girl, we are past that. We're not doing Lemonade. We're back on TikTok.
No.
Well, and there's also, I mean, notably no mention of Substack, which feels like it's becoming part of the brand playbook and social girly playbook in a very big way. By the way, Kyle, I wanted to ask you, and Lukas, please chime in here too. I have been getting likes on a bunch of my newsletter posts from bookstores that may or may not be real bookstores.
Oh,
and I haven't gone down the rabbit hole or done the investigation, but I was just, they are happening with a sufficient frequency that it is either a person posting from multiple accounts,
right,
or it's bots. And
Huh.
the idea of bots representing themselves as bookstores seems
Fascinating.
very odd to me.
There's a moment happening now with AI and bookstores, because of the whole Claude factory with the books that they were scanning, and it looks like a
Oh
concentration
yeah,
camp.
sure.
Like, so there's a moment, there's something happening there. So I wouldn't be surprised. I have not experienced that. That is a bit shocking. I'll keep my eye out. I'm sure now that you say it's like, my phone is listening, and I'm gonna get like 10 right now.
Yeah, well, listen, upping your engagement, driving the algo. I'm
Sure.
I'm I'm just but it is interesting to think maybe that is because maybe not is because of the Claude bookstore thing or
Right.
book absorption thing, but that it's a corollary to it.
Yeah.
Well, all
Yeah.
right. So Lucas, so as not to digress too much, what are your what of those platforms? Photos, reels,
Sorry.
threads, story, community chats, Lemonade, TikTok, etc. What are your like natives these days?
I went frozen for a while. I just had to hop on my hotspot. What was the question? I'm so sorry.
No, and that's totally okay. I was just asking what your of those many platforms that Watch Holly named, what are your natives these
So
days?
simple, and I like the original four are the only ones I kind of pay
Mm,
attention to. The original TikTok one was kind of funny, but like X, Instagram, and I think TikTok, that's it. I on and now Substack, but like I
okay.
have
Okay.
very little patience for
No
so
Facebook?
many for Marketplace, which I barely go
Oh,
on
fair.
nowadays. 'Cause
That's
I'm
very
like,
normal. Right.
But I honestly feel like everything, to your point about like the bots on Substack, everything is a bot now. Like
Yeah.
even what I'm recommended on Instagram, I'm like, who are these people? Um, yes, I'll buy the t-shirt because you just sold it. Like you're showing me a bunch of ads for it. It is not what it used to be, which I think is part of why the whole 2016 trend is like so big right now. Because remember a simpler time when your feed was just your friends and.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very simple in that way. I spend way too much time on X/Twitter because I feel like that is like the one, even with all like the
Still.
the bullshit on it.
Still.
Yeah, like I feel like it's
I agree
still
with
the
that.
number
I
I,
one.
agree
I
with that.
I read something this morning which was talking about it might have maybe it was an embedded, but it was talking about how people are back on Twitter because it's good again. And the analogy was, yeah, it's good again the way a restaurant is good again after it changes
Management.
management and is just sort of like it settles back into a groove and now it's a new thing,
Hmm.
but it's still the restaurant. Theoretically, it's totally
I
different, but
mean,
you just accept it for what it is now.
Honestly, one
sure.
thing that I have sort of come to terms with is the majority of accounts on X/Twitter are fake. Like I'm
Right.
very good at discerning
Absolutely.
what is real and what's not. And so once I've accepted that the majority of the clickbaity posts or like rage bait posts are from fake from bots, like I can move through it a little bit more. I just have more humor with it.
Right.
But every now and then, this is like a weekly basis, there will be one post that will go viral that's like truly absurd. I know it's coming from a real person, and it's just like, wow, we are still like we are like there are crazy people on here, and I love it. Like just saying the most
It's
absurd. Like
it's great.
remember like that post of somebody saying that Dakota Johnson has her hair cut the
Oh
way it is
yeah.
because it looks like a hijab.
Oh,
Like
one of the
that came
best
from
posts.
that came from the mind of a
Amazing
human being.
posts.
Like that is insane.
That is one of the best posts of last year. It's so
It's
like unhinged.
anthropological,
Yeah.
Twitter.
Yeah. But also
Yeah.
like to your point, Ben, about like, restaurant ownership, I will say to the contrary, and like, look, controversial but brave. I never left. And it's always been good. Sadly, for people who are like, no, this, and then go into like Instagram threads, which is like, okay, like from one poison to another. What are you talking about? But
Yeah, yeah.
it has maintained that sort of pace, thankfully, even with less people. And honestly, when there was the exits, it kind of like made a lot of people rise to the surface who were maybe better posters who you weren't seeing
Yeah.
because of blah, blah, blah. So like the dynamic has
That's
changed, but also because of those people did leave.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have never been a Twitter person
Really?
in any kind of a real way. Like I've been on it
Right.
since '07. I think I was on, or yeah, I think I've been on it since '07. But it's never been a real part of my media diet and
Right.
or my like locus of communication. And it still isn't, and I don't anticipate that it ever will be. And I wonder, Lucas, are your core four similarly represented by the people that are around you, do you think, or are you some sort of outlier or throwback?
Yeah, I mean, TikTok I actually like because it's completely separate from my actual reality. I don't follow any of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I maybe follow like two or three friends, but like none of them post that much. And it is just truly like a source of discovery. Twitter seems to be the place where my friends and I, it's like what we send in the group chat the most. I have a
Mm-hmm.
group chat with Kyle where like 99% of our posts come from Twitter. So it's
Got it.
sort of like it's like where we congregate to like laugh, really.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Instagram is the only true social media in that
Totally.
that's where I'm the only place I'm, communicating with my friends. But yeah, it seems like every platform has a different necessity.
Yeah.
And you
Absolutely.
mentioned Substack. What does Substack do
I think
in that way?
I love writers and I love just like ideas and sharing ideas and reading, I sent Kyle a Substack from a writer who basically rips Charlie XCX's
All right.
Substack apart. I don't know who this writer is, but I just loved reading her point of view and like it is like the intellect of the internet, in my opinion. I mean, there is a
Yeah, yeah.
lot of non-intellectual posts, but like it is where I get like my fiber, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well,
Substack as the internet's fiber.
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
Two things from that, which is that reminds me. Number one is after our talk last week, after our live conversations with Willa Bennett, I had a talk for maybe 20 minutes with a group of young women about their thoughts on exactly, not necessarily that post, but on Charlie XCX and celebrities in general being on Substack and how down on it they were, which I was fascinated by. I agree with them, but I was like, their point of view, and granted they're probably over 10 years younger than me, was a very similar take to mine, which I was surprised by for no other reason than just like, wow, like this rubbed people in a similar wrong way of just like, you're doing too much. Like, I don't need, like, it was a different, the Charlie XCX thing is, celebrity as thinker in the way that regular people are doing on Substack isn't a good look versus, ironically or not, versus like Troye Sivan coming on and being like, let me read you on like why this guy who wronged me is wrong. That they were like, this is cool. And number two, Lizzo sort of like coming on, Lizzo in her flop era being like, let me give you musings about Hollywood and the music thing. They like that too. And we were like, if Katy Perry were to get on tomorrow and start a Substack, we probably would read it and enjoy it more than Charlie XCX. And that was fascinating.
Yeah, I'm aghast at that. I mean,
I think
because
it's
I
just
think
oversaturation, really.
okay. Well, if it's a function of oversaturation, I understand it. But I as I say, I'm sort of aghast about it because Charlie to me is as Scott Galloway would say, blue flame thinker among those people,
Sure.
and so I'm surprised.
I mean,
I'm
and
surprised at that.
for the record, I actually really like Charlie's Substack. I think it's a
Okay.
very clever, beyond the veil of pop stardom, but it is, what's cool about Substack is that like it's democratized
Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
in a way, and people are reading
Yeah.
long form again, which I really love.
So this brings into the other point that I was going to say, which is something that I know Ben I mentioned to you after our session last week, which maybe this is obvious, maybe this is not, but and of course, like we had Willa Bennett who runs Cosmo and 17, so those are very specific audiences. But what struck me is like, outside of Lucas and another friend and maybe two or three other people, the room was like nearly 70 young women in their 20s. And
Yeah.
that was remarkable. And it really, and like I assumed that they were all Willow people. So many of them were there because they read the Trend Report. Thank you for reading the Trend Report. But like that was a sort of like, whoa, okay. I don't think enough people sort of talk about or think, and I could be wrong, that like a big part of the culture engine in Substack is young women who read, which, as we know, historically is who is reading right now, quote unquote. And I thought, like, seeing that in the room, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
obviously. But like, I had never thought about that. I just thought, like, quote unquote, every other social network, it is very, evenly split, et cetera, et cetera. But I wouldn't be surprised if Substack leans like, 3/4 women or like 2/3 women. I wouldn't be surprised.
Sure. Yeah, I don't disagree. And the other thing, the idea of young women being invested in writing in a way, it takes some of the air out of the sails of my constant contention to people that they shouldn't venerate writing too much. Meaning that writing, of course, forms the core of the modern media expression. But if you venerate writing too much and ignore these other formats that are more, let's call it viral or easier to associate with or easier to communicate, then you're doing yourself a disservice. That being said, I understand that I guess hearing that feedback makes me think it's less monolithic than or less, sort of singly focused than I might have given credit to.
Likewise.
Yeah.
It could have been the audience too. It could have been like the guests, et cetera, perfect storm. I was telling somebody, I was like, we should try an experiment where next time we have like a decidedly like guy leaning guest and see if the audience is different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the calls out to clavicular. So just, only
honestly,
just JK, guys.
I also feel like the idea of the writer or writers are still so romanticized, and like that. I don't know how gendered that idea is, but like, think of like Carrie Bradshaw and like
right.
Joan Didion and like all of these writers that like we grew up like fictional and not, and so which is why I think, for example, like Twitter is still as big as it is because words are really, people have this fascination with clever people, and writers tend to fit that category. And I even noticed that at my job, I will be in brainstorms where I am coming up with tweets or like captions for something, and people are truly blown away when I've come up with something clever or just like wordplay, which to me is just like I literally just farted this out of myself. But like to people who are not, people who are not as like witty in that way or like tapped in, it's like monumental, which is why I think Twitter will never go away, because words, and writers are always going to be important,
Yeah. Well, it also underscores the thing, and Kyle, we had a conversation with my daughter about this, but it underscores the need also to be able to speak, present, communicate clearly and distinctly as the future-proof skill that everybody, but young people in particular, need to have going forward.
Which is ironic because ChatGPT and AI is sort of taking over that. So in the future, I do think that if you can write well or are just like witty in some way, it's going to be it's a lost art form, It's going to feel like a delicacy.
Absolutely. It's like that's the social skill of being able to, Ben, we talked about this when I was in New York, that social skill of being able to like host a party or have an event is like such a crucial skill that like it can be learned, but like it's something that it's like it should be developed. If you don't develop that skill, like you really are doing yourself a disservice. And like those sort of social soft skills, like I would include sort of like being able to banter and like I think like queer people do really good at it, some women too, is like that is such a useful survival mechanism, and I think will become even more important in this age of AI, online, et cetera, et cetera. It's like it really does help you stand out, is if you know how to sort of like interact with people and understand like what a real interaction looks like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's so one. This is a big topic to introduce at a time when I'm have a hard stop, to quote
Yeah.
Alex Schleifer from the excellent People versus Algorithms podcast, and I've got to disappear in a minute. But there was the writer Ayala, who Aella, Ayala.substack, that she posted something called that is women are low status, which of course is immediately like a exactly
Right. They like
hot take. Yeah, oh, for sure. But so Ayala is a former and maybe currently, I don't know, sex worker who
mm-hmm.
I became aware of in the Clubhouse days as somebody who came on the platform, was plugged into Silicon Valley in some way, shape, or form, and
Right.
became kind of a thought leader on the platform. She now has this Substack, which is widely read, and what she says in this "Women Are Low Status" is actually it's a comparison between women and men being high status and low status, and she uses high status and low status as a substitute for male and female traits. The idea of it boiled down extremely far, and you should read the piece, which is called Part 5, Women Are Low Status. It's again Ayala.substack, is
mm-hmm.
that the skills like listening, being convivial, accommodating the other person's interests and subjects is largely a women trait, and that has largely conveyed women low status over the course of time, meaning that men being high status, not listening, interrupting, not being interrupted, all of these sorts of things, this is the high status game. In a modern world, however, it sounds like maybe some of the reason that we have this crisis of young men is that they've been educated with the idea that you don't listen, you talk.
Right.
I mean, like all of these quote unquote high status behaviors, which in fact are counterproductive.
Increasingly so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I don't.
completely.
Yeah. And I guess this is the thing. This is the real way to fix the crisis in young men is dials back even further into the notion of just like we all need to be a little more like people across the gender divide, or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
That's an incomplete thought, obviously, but
which honestly I don't know how that has translated into men reading less, and like
well,
I'm interested in like that correlation, like why that has led to us just like reading a lot less than women. So I don't know. I'd have to think about that, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. It is remarkable. All right, listen, guys. Like I said, I have a hard stop, but please
you
continue.
Go ahead. We will continue
All right.
chatting.
All right, good. Lucas,
good to see you, Ben.
Great to talk to you. Yes, indeed.
Hi,
I'll see you guys.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, you bet.
Bye.
All right, so something that, like, to that conversation we were just having with Ben before he had to go was the idea of like men reading this ties into something that you had sent that you want to talk about that I think is like a really good sort of like segue, is like the idea of like performative males and like that whole thing tying into the sort of like rise of anti-intellectualism. You didn't pin it to anything, and this seems like sort of like something you've been ruminating on. Tell me more about that. Like, how are you making those connections, and why do you think that they're really like, is that something valuable? Why are you thinking about that now?
Yeah, I mean, there were two posts or two social media trends I was thinking of when I sent you this, which was one, I read a lot, and like especially because I live in New York, I read on the train. If I have downtime in between, hang out with friends or like doing stuff out and about, like I carry a book wherever I go, which I apparently is performative, which I've come to find out.
Interesting.
Like I've seen so many, people will go viral on X or
just
TikTok
for having a book. Right.
Yeah,
sure.
but well,
I've
like
seen them.
filming people, particularly men. I don't know if I've seen it as many women get filmed reading and like it go viral, but I
Hmm.
definitely have seen posts of men reading in public and then people in the comments like he's so performative,
Right.
reading infinite jest in public, whatever, which made me think about myself. I'm like, now whenever I take out my book in public on the train or something, I'm like, do I look stupid? Like, do I look performative? The other point though was I remember so Letterbox for people who I'm sure everyone does know, but Letterbox, which is the film social media
Hmm.
platform, or for cinephiles, they will go to red carpet events and ask filmmakers what their Letterbox top four is.
Hmm.
And to me, it seems normal for filmmakers to choose, people who have devoted their lives to filmmaking to choose four movies that are not, that, are, international or like foreign classics or like, I
Right.
don't know, like the classic films, Citizen Kane or like whatever. And
Things
a
that
lot,
inform their work. Yeah.
yes, which I think to some people, because they are not commercial successes, come off as
Right.
pretentious or arrogant. And I'm thinking specifically of a Letterbox video where Austin Butler says one of his Letterbox top four is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly with Clint Eastwood.
Right.
I think that's what it's called. But a very big TikToker stitched it and was like, I forget what his name was, but he was like, just choose Toy Story. Like, why are you saying that? Just choose Toy Story.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you sound like an asshole. And all the comments were like, The Good, the Bad, the
That
Ugly is
movie, you sound
like
like an
a
asshole. That's like a
commercial hit. Yeah,
yeah,
it's like
exactly.
not, it's not anything that pretentious,
No.
but it did just make me think about like this question of like what, we are losing sort of, yeah, intellectualism is becoming dangerous, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's because you know what? It's funny. It goes hand in hand. Well, I think they're two different things. It goes hand in hand with like I had a conversation with people about this last week. I don't remember who, and like you might have even been in the conversation. I don't even remember because I had so many conversations in the past 2 weeks. But one
Yeah,
of them was about that sort of the need for gatekeeping and that sort of moment of like no gatekeeping, like everything, like tell me how to do it. I don't want to look it up. You tell me is like that sort of was like sort of the noise that then we're living the echo of is that then
hmm,
it's like, oh, like this is an old movie, you're pretentious because that's too smart. And it's like, that's not what anybody is saying, number one. Number two, just because it requires a little bit of work doesn't make it pretentious. That just makes it something that is maybe challenging to a modern audience, a modern eye, but like that just outs of someone as maybe incurious and a bit sort of like it
or
outs their media
insecure.
diet. Yeah, insecure, 100% insecure, which is like, as we know, and I know we've talked, this is like, which is a hallmark of youth. And like a lot of that behavior is just sort of like in response to their own inability to resonate with that, find these things interesting, and to sort of like try and fail to read a book or watch an old movie or whatever. And like, not that you have to do any of those, but like that sort of like critique of it then unfortunately only puts you on a path to do the opposite of that, it seems. And like
Totally.
we're living in that now, which is like that, like, anybody reading is performative is like, okay, that's a really ridiculous statement.
Yeah.
I don't think
Well,
it's
yeah, and I
problematic, but
think
it's ridiculous.
it is very, I think there are layers to it in that because people now are making their their main source of income through rage baiting, really. Like you
Yeah,
can make a
absolutely.
lot of money with engagement on X, on TikTok, I think probably anywhere at this point. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever gets the most engagement, you'll get the fatter paycheck, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
because the majority of society is not watching, like really old, obscure foreign films, or
Right.
they're not reading, classic literature,
Mm-hmm.
like at large. And so that's like a very easy way to tap into like our, I guess, like
Yeah,
sore spots or something.
totally.
Um, but it's, I think also the other part of it, especially because I brought up like the performative males and like why specifically
Mm-hmm.
why they're called performative male. I think because, obviously I think people are catching on to the fact that men do a lot for attention.
Yeah,
And that's always been there, but like now we
totally.
have cameras to like document it, and so it's
Right.
just like an easy way to sort of pick up that, you know?
Right. Right. And so that this all brings up another subject is that there's a conversation going around on social, specifically on X or Twitter. I don't know call it X, but somebody said X earlier, so now I'm saying that.
I
Twitter,
know, I said Twitter,
is
yeah,
like
but
Twitter.
yeah.
That's what it is.
It's Twitter, yeah, yeah.
But there were some conversations going around about this, and think I put in yesterday's Shem report about like this is not new, but I think there's now language for it, is this idea of planned remembrance, quote unquote, and that people will
Mm-mm-mm.
be on vacation or be at a concert or be in a moment that is exciting. And one of the videos that was shared is like, a video of somebody on like a whale watching boat, and like this giant fucking whale jumps out of the water.
Yeah.
And instead of like turning and watching it and just literally taking it in, it was a video of the person reacting to it with their back to the camera, recording it with the intention of sharing it and whatever. And like that idea is being called planned remembrance, of sort of like living in the present with an eye for the future so that you can either share or relive it or whatever, so that when it actually happens, it doesn't necessarily exist. And
Mm.
I don't know if those things are related, sort of like that sort of anti-intellectualism and whatever. I don't think they are, but I do think that's a very unique mode of looking at the world. And what came to my mind, and like this sort of really pinned onto Gen Z, is like, number one, do you think that this is something that is actually occurring? Like, I think I've definitely done that and I've seen people do it, but I'm curious to get your take as someone who is Gen Z. But then number two, like, do we think that this is unique to now? Like, was this an activity that existed before the phone?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think it is a very new age thing because
Okay.
we live, I mean, it is very cliche, but that whole saying that came out of the 2010s for like, if you didn't post it, did it even happen?
Right.
It's like you want the idea that other people saw you do it is more meaningful than
Mm-hmm.
you knowing that you have experienced it.
Right.
I mean, I remember the first time I saw Beyonce live. This is 2017, 2016, and I sat next to somebody who I don't think put her phone down the entire show, like was watching the show through the camera, which at the time that was the beginning of this era of did it
Yeah.
happen if you didn't even post it? But I was just sort of like, wow, you are here, like Beyonce is in front of you, and it makes more. It is not worth it unless you
Mm-hmm.
have something to show other people. Um, and I remember when I came back from that show, when I was in college, and I ran into a friend at a dining hall, and I told her I went to the show, and she was like, "Why didn't you post about it? Like, I didn't even know you went." I'm like, "It's so funny how
Right.
it's also for other people are expecting it from you too."
Right.
Um, and like the whole question of engagement, like people people want attention. People want to
Yeah.
feel like people are watching them and liking their posts. Like that will never go away. And I think now it's just like amplified because there are so many ways to get engagement.
Yeah. I feel like there's an
And
Addison
like,
Rae song about this.
yeah, probably, probably. Wait, which one
I don't
is
know.
it?
I mean, easy to go to famous again, but I don't think that's right. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
there was an
yeah.
Addison Rae song exactly about this. Anyway, sorry.
But that post of the whale, like that guy probably knows this has the
Totally.
potential of not reaching just my audience, but like the global
Totally.
internet.
But I think like beyond that is like, the reason why people are posting this way to exactly to that point, and like maybe less to your friend asking like, why didn't you post about it? Is that like that sort of behavior is like a form of like, internet poisoning, where it's like, I'm trying to hit the TikTok or Instagram or whatever lottery, get a big following, cash out, whatever. And like, I get that, but also it's like, who gives a shit? Even if you're doing that just for your friends, it
Yeah,
still is like, I would rather somebody have, I don't mean this seriously, but I do in a little bit of a way. It's like, I would rather somebody just have those fucking like meta glasses and like do that and record it, or wear like a fucking GoPro
yeah,
than just like sort of self-referentially being like in the present, but making a movie to share in the future. It's like that's not like, you're not real. I mean, I
yeah,
guess it's also different context. If like I'm with a group of people, like good friends or whatever, and someone's doing that, that's going to piss me off. If they're doing it on their
yeah.
own, I don't really care. Honestly, I don't. Like, it doesn't matter. That's
Mm-mm.
for you. Um, but I also like, I don't. I've started to do, and I definitely did this in my travels for the past like few weeks, is like I took pictures with people who I saw if I remembered. A lot of times I didn't.
Yeah.
Less for any other reason than like I wanted proof that like this happened. And like
Hmm.
that is something that like I've never had that feeling. But like when I'm doing that, it's just like it's less to share. I often don't share. But it's more like this is proof that this happened. So when I look back through my time capsule that is my like photos, I have proof of this.
No,
Um
totally. I mean, there is a difference between being really eager to share just to put something on
yeah,
the internet and then wanting to make memories. We've had
right.
obviously photography for a very long time. I think the
Totally.
difference between the past generations and now, and I think of like my dad, for example, documented everything growing up. Like with me and my sister, like he was a very good photographer in that way. The difference though is that because we didn't have unlimited,
Right.
like back when I was growing up, my dad had a film camera with limited,
Yeah, yeah.
um, you know, photographs he could take. So every photograph had to be quality or had to be like
Yeah. Very
thoughtful.
intentional.
Whereas
Right.
now you can take like 2,000 pictures, literally just holding the button, and then and you might never look at it again. But
Right. It doesn't mean anything for you, and it doesn't mean anything for the people looking at it because there's just so much media. So it's like, why do I care? Which is also a
yeah,
part of this problem too.
hmm,
Um,
hmm,
it's very ridiculous. But
yeah,
okay, so to the Gen Z of it all, like this ties into something that you sent, which I literally had mentioned that to somebody, or I've thought about this, but you brought this up in our email about subjects, is this feeling that there are some millennial, or not millennial, some Gen Z people who are not adopting the generational moniker, if you will, and they are trying to say that they are on the cusp, or they are millennial,
yes,
or they are more millennial, just
yes,
trying to sort of like distance themselves from the Gen Z title.
a little bit of embarrassment.
Yeah, is this something that you have experienced personally? Like, where did that come from? Because
Yes,
I
several
definitely
times.
have seen this happen a few times too. Tell me
Yeah,
about
yeah,
this
yeah.
experience.
Well, so last week, my coworker and I, who have become pretty good friends with, we go to the office the same time every week, and we get along very well, and she's younger than me. And I don't know how it came up, but she mentioned that she was a millennial, and I kind of turned to her like really sharply. I'm like, "You are not a millennial. Like, you are very firmly Gen Z," and I know this because she's
Right.
26. Like, that is very
Right.
Gen,
Oh my God. That's crazy.
I think she's turning
That's
27
crazy.
this year, but I'm like, you are very
Still.
firmly Gen Z. And she's like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm on the cusp. I'm like, you are not on. And I know this because I'm on the cusp. Like, I
Right.
was born in 1996, which I know is like very firmly like in the
Yeah, yeah.
middle.
Absolutely.
And it's just funny because she was arguing with me on it, like playfully, but she like really did not want to be lumped into Gen Z. And I was very kind of blown away by that because
Right.
if you remember when I first started at the agency that I was hired at the time, like 2020, 2021, every
Every
account
brand.
wanted desperately to be Gen Z and they wanted
Yeah.
to speak directly to Gen Z. It was
Hmm.
like I've never seen a generation be catered to in the same way where like everyone wanted
Had
to
the
talk like
universe in the
them.
palm of their hands.
Yeah, exactly. So it was very interesting that this coworker of mine, was suddenly just like, no, I do not want to be associated with that. Because I think now that Gen Z has grown up a little bit and has
Right.
been more a part of culture, we've seen sort of their characteristics develop.
Flaws. Absolutely.
Flaws, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just thought that was and it's happened to me more than once. Like,
Yeah.
I've heard other younger people be like, no, I'm on the cusp. I'm like, you were born in
Right.
99. You were
Right.
born in 2000. You are not
Right. Right.
millennial.
Right.
Like,
Right. 2005. Shut up. Yeah.
and
Um.
it's connected to like this sort of like people are respecting millennials a little bit more
Totally.
than before.
Totally.
There's sort of this nostalgia that if you went to college between 2014 and 2019 that you like had the good years, and it's very
Right.
fascinating to me.
It's very interesting, and it makes me reflect on previous episodes like this. And like I've never questioned like it's I always aim to get a Gen Z guest, but oftentimes they will be a younger millennial or older Gen Z or on that cusp. That comes up a lot, and like whether or not that is true, I don't know. But even like
Mm.
last week, that was something that came up in the conversation, which was like, no, I'm millennial, and I was like, wait, you're on the cusp. So like, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that is something that does come up because it's funny because like I don't know if that is a new thing for people to say that, or if they've always sort of like people who are in the cusp have always leaned more millennial in identification, or vice versa.
I
I'm
think
sure
it's
we could go
pretty
through time,
new.
and yeah, I feel like it is fairly new.
I
But
Yeah, I mean, in addition to like what you're just saying, like Gen Z flaws sort of becoming more clear, and to be clear, every generation has flaws, whatever. I think
absolutely,
we're just getting to know Gen Z a little bit
human,
more.
right?
But I think Gen Z, like younger people, are realizing their youth has been really robbed by just the circumstances of the 2020s, and
And
they don't
ironically,
want,
trying to be older at the same
yeah,
time.
yeah, and
That
they're,
ruined the youth. And now then they're trying to be older, which is hilarious. Irony. Anyway,
yeah,
sorry.
which is no. I mean, that was kind of it. It's just they really don't want to be associated with a generation that has had youth like taken from them in a way, you
Right.
know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's very interesting. Well, to wrap, I wanted to get your quick take
Yes.
on the Gen Z Beatles. So, for those who did not see, late last week, I think it was maybe on Friday, maybe Thursday, the first sort of press photos for the quote unquote Gen Z Beatles drop, which was Joseph Quinn as George Harrison, Harris Dickinson as John Lennon, Paul Mescal as Paul McCartney, who looks exactly like him,
Like dead on, yeah.
dead on, and then Barry Keoghan as Ringo, who looks crazy, but also dead on, but also looks crazy.
Yeah.
So, what is your take on this? Insane, great. What do you think?
Wait, are they all Gen Z? Or are you just saying
I
Gen
don't
Z
think
because it's coming
technically.
out?
I think it's just Gen Z because like it's
Just
just
like the
like you know,
younger.
yeah. It's like it's like having what's his name who's in Wuthering Heights in the movie. It's like come on, like you're
Right.
playing to
Yeah.
like the girls, if you will.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, I have a general take about biopics, or people, yeah, biopics,
Yeah.
where I think there's a lot of people forget that acting is a craft and that
Yes.
you can learn to be somebody, and so people are immediately like, well, they don't look like he doesn't look like Ringo, so
Totally.
therefore he can't play him, which I completely don't agree with. Not the Ringo portion, but just like you don't have to look identical to somebody. Like you have to capture their essence. Admittedly, I'm not like a diehard Beatles fan, so I'm sure I will watch one of the film. I mean, there are four, right? They made four separate
Therefore, which
movies.
is gluttonous.
Yeah, but it's the Beatles, right? It's like one of the
Sure.
biggest musical acts of all time, so like I get why they did that. I think I don't really have an opinion besides get your bag. I don't know.
I
Like I'll be there. I'll watch a few. I don't know if I'll watch
valid.
all of them, but
I'm not watching that
but
shit.
you're not.
No.
I,
I also like
I'm gonna go to theater with my dad for one of them. I'm sure
I don't care.
he's a huge
I
Beatles
don't
fan.
care. I do care about like the bad wigs. Oh, I care about that. But that doesn't mean I need to see the movie. I also will say really quickly. Well, it's funny you said you're gonna go see it with your dad, but like I do think maybe it's generational. The Beatles have never rung any of my bells. I don't give a shit. But I also think a part of that is also having like, my mother's an immigrant, and like I think maybe I would be curious for you if like having immigrant parents, if like if what's that relationship like? Because like I'm like no, like that was my dad's culture, and I didn't care about it then, and I don't care about it now. It's like this has never appealed to me.
I feel like the Beatles has just always been. They're just sort of like. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know what to say to that actually.
But it was a part like
It
your dad liked it, which is interesting.
Yes, yeah,
Universal.
very much. Yeah,
I
he's a Beatles
no
fan. What can I say?
no. Maybe it's just a dad.
I'm gonna
thing.
support.
That's
I'm
it.
gonna support his being a stan. That's what I'm there.
Sure.
To.
It's a lot of Boomer and Gen X's dads. Like it's his Beyonce. It's his Zara Larson.
Yes, he would take me to every Disney on Ice as a kid,
Okay,
and therefore
fair.
I'm gonna go to all the Beatles films with him.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Last question. Which from the pictures, which of the Beatles isn't actually in Kia Asylum, and then we'll wrap.
I mean, I think Barry, right?
Barry's wig. Barry and his wig
Barry's
is
wig.
definitely in Kia's Asylum. Maybe it'll be freed. We'll find out when we watch the movie.
I want to look at the budget breakdown, and if the wig budget is little, like we have to talk to somebody because
No,
not okay.
insane. Anyway, Lucas, thank you for joining us. Where can people find you online? What is your social? You mentioned the socials that you're on. Which do you actually post and you want people to see?
I'm only on, embarrassingly, only on Instagram at
Okay,
Lucas, Lukasa, and then Ferreira, which is Ferreira. Or you can find me on Substack at upstairs/downstairs.
great.
Yeah,
Amazing. Well, thank you. And you can also find Ben at sic.substack.com and me, 1234 Kyle, 5678.substack.com as well. With the Trend Report, this was another great episode of Hip Replacement. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Lucas, as well. And we will see you next week with Ben and a new guest. Bye, y'all.
thank you. Bye.